you lived out of a suitcase and you slept in a different location almost every night. So it was really a nomadic life. And I think back on it now and I think, how did I possibly do that?
Welcome to the PM Podcast, brought to you by DonorSearch, the show that takes you inside the lives of thought leaders, innovators, and changemakers in fundraising, philanthropy, and civil society. I'm your host, Jay Frost. Abby Trahan is the Associate Director of Philanthropy at MD Anderson Cancer Center and one of two recipients of the 2025 Outstanding Young Professional Award from the Association of Fundraising Professionals. In just 5 years, Abby has delivered transformational fundraising results, from growing monthly giving at the Houston Food Bank to securing major gifts and endowed support at the University of Houston Law Center. Now at MD Anderson, she brings her passion for equity, mentorship, and community-driven impact to one of the nation's leading cancer centers. We spoke with her live at ICON, the association's international conference in Seattle. We'll just start by the beginning, and I'll just congratulate you.
Thank you.
On the award. When did you find out that you received it?
Maybe a few months ago. So my colleague and my boss printed out a banner. It was really sweet, and they brought it into the office.
So did they find out before you?
Yes, they knew before me because they nominated me.
Oh.
And so they asked to let me know, and so the awards committee. So it was really nice.
They walked into your office with a banner saying you won?
Yes, they had a banner. It was very sweet. So
that is very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like a nice place to work.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get to where you work, let's start with a little bit of background. So
sure.
Where did you get your start in the field?
Sure. So I received my master's degree from Texas A&M University, and I had the opportunity to work for a professor who's an ACFRE, Dr. Angela Seaworth. And so I got to have an internship with her and have her in class. So I got to really understand how the theory is then applied in the workforce. So it was fantastic. And then I graduated from my graduate degree in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, wow.
So in 2020, I started at the Houston Food Bank and worked there during the pandemic and all the natural disasters. I worked in the annual fund, but I knew that I wanted to move into the major gift space. Yeah. So I moved to a higher education institution, University of Houston, and worked there with the law school. So.
Wow, I feel like I got the short accordion version of that. There's a lot that happened in those few years.
Yeah.
You touched on by talking about the pandemic. If you were working at a food bank in the pandemic, that was really on the front lines.
Yep.
That's closer to the front line than working in a grocery store. Certainly, those are people who needed food desperately. What was that like?
Well, I worked from home, so I think I was one of the privileged individuals that had that opportunity because we were raising the dollars.
Right.
So we raised a lot of money during that time, and we saw a lot of new donors. I remember when the stimulus checks came out. We received was it $1,200 in the stimulus checks? We received people giving their stimulus check to the food bank directly, during that time. So just experienced lots of generosity. Yes, it was definitely stressful, but I think you saw the best of humanity during that time. So
was that unsolicited as well? People just turning their checks over?
Yeah, we didn't ask anyone for their stimulus check. We didn't advertise that or anything. And I'm making an assumption, right? The stimulus checks dropped and then we got $1,200 donations, but
it seems
it seems clear. Like it fit.
And so that was the best of humanity. That's what you said.
I think so, yeah. I think it's when people show up for other people and they know that they don't need the money, but someone else does, and they pay it forward. I think that's what this is all about. Is philanthropy and what we do.
Yeah. Okay, so what inspired moving into philanthropy? Because you just said that you were in a program where you were studying it and you were living it. So go way back.
Way back. Way back.
Yeah, I mean, how did it, where are you from initially?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town called Lake Jackson, Texas, which is south of Houston. And I always enjoyed doing the fundraisers with what people normally think of as fundraisers.
What kind of things?
So selling gift wrap, selling chocolate, things like that. And
for school?
Yes, for your school, or I'm trying to think, maybe extracurricular activities. And I loved going door to door. It was my favorite thing when I would get home from school. My mom would only let me go so many doors down, but I would knock on the door and ask for money or try to sell things. And I always enjoyed the opportunity of going to visit with people. So I would say it kind of started off really young, but in between high school and college, I took a gap year for a year, and I was a missionary.
Oh.
And during that time, I really understood like the power of relationships and the power of influence and what you can do. So I knew I wanted to go into the nonprofit sector, but not sure what I wanted to do. And fundraising felt like the exact right fit while I was in graduate school. So that's how I ended up.
Where was the mission?
So I was all over the U.S. So it was a traveling missionary group, but I got the opportunity to learn how to introduce yourself to strangers and get to know them in a short period of time, which is kind of what I do every day now.
It is, and everything you just mentioned, whether it's being a kid, I guess, going door to door for whatever it's selling gift wrap, or whether it's going door to door as a missionary in communities that are not yours, at least not yet, that requires a certain degree of confidence. Where did it come from?
Oh, I don't think it's confidence as much as I think it's the power that I know it can have. So I don't think it was like confidence in going in and asking, do you want to buy this gift wrap? It was knowing, hey, my school needs additional funds. The more gift wrap that I sell, the more that positively impacts the school. And it's kind of fun to raise money. But I think it's the impact that it gets to have, not so much confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, when I don't want to call a donor, I pick up the phone anyways. It has nothing to do with me, but the students that I serve and the ways that they're able to benefit from the philanthropy that comes through.
Did you always make that connection, even when you were small? That it's not
Probably
about you, it's about the other?
Probably when I was small, it was more fun, right? To like raise the most money or something like that. I don't know when that connection was finally made.
Yeah. I know for some people, for example, if they have a parent or a family member who's engaged in these things, or if we go to a church or whatever it is, and then we...
I mean, I always went to... faith has been a huge part of my life. So I've always been kind of in those dynamics. We always spent time volunteering as a kid. My mom gave back, and my dad like additional hours outside of work. So I think it's just was part of life.
So the missionary work around the country, where did you go?
Yeah, so I took a backwards C. So kind of the Midwest, the whole East Coast, and the South.
And you were doing this as a team, or?
Yeah, it's a team of 12 individuals. So you like traveled together and you put on like retreats for high school and junior high youth, like through church and parish connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining what that journey was like with these other people, and how, even if everybody is committed to what they're doing, there still must have been some element of transformation as you take 12 young people and you bring them around the country.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, doing that with others?
Definitely transformational. So before that, I had never moved away from home, ever. And I always had a fear of moving from home. So when I took this leap, my parents were really surprised, and my friends. But it was really transformational of giving me the independence and the power to make decisions on my own, to think about things, to learn about dynamics, to be observant and listen to people, and be respectful of the different cultures or things that I encountered. So I think that really transformed me. It gave me a lot of maturity going into college. So I took college and then my graduate degree really seriously. I didn't spend a lot of time on a Friday night out doing things that college students do, but it was studying or preparing my exams. It just, it was a different level.
So then you were off to school. You came back, graduated, went to college. How did you choose to do the academic study of philanthropy as well as just engage in it because it was fun and interesting and beneficial?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's in public administration, so we studied the public sector.
Yes.
But what was missing from my bachelor's is we spent so much time talking about government, but very little time talking about the nonprofit sector.
Sure.
So I realized I was missing a key piece of information. So that's when I decided to pursue my master's degree. And my master's degree had an emphasis on the nonprofit sector. So that's when I was able to learn more.
That's something that's very timely. This discussion about the role of government, the role of the sector.
Right?
So how did you kind of navigate that then, and how are you navigating it now? I mean, how are you thinking about it? Because you've studied both.
Super interesting. Yes, and I have a really good friend that's a business professor. And we talk a lot about this, is how the three sectors are different and how the three sectors are similar and what roles that they play.
Yeah.
So we studied, there's the concept of government failure and market failure. So a government is supposed to provide a service and they fail. when that happens, there's two things that can happen. The market can come in, the for-profit industry or the nonprofit industry, and try to fill the gap. Or when a market fails, when a company is no longer successful, then you have government who can come in, or the nonprofit sector. So it's kind of thinking about the three sectors and how they work. And I don't remember who the professor is that studied this area, but I remember the concept.
It sounds like it's very organic that way, but
I don't think it's as organic.
Well, I mean, if there's a need, and then the need is either met or it's not. Right. I don't know how efficient that is. Maybe that's not the purpose. Is efficiency? Maybe it's just.
I think it's theory, right?
Yeah.
This is a theory and how we think about how the three sectors interact.
So how do they really interact?
I have no idea. I think we're seeing that unfold now.
Right. Well, and maybe that's a point about even where you work now. So to take us up to the present a little bit. So you were out of school and you were working first with the food bank and then others. And
so I worked for the Houston Food Bank. I was in the annual fund. I ran their monthly donor program, which was fantastic. I grew the program from about 3,000 individuals to 5,000. So 60% growth. Sure. And then I moved into the mid-level major gift space, which is where I'm at now at the University of Houston at the Law Center. And so I've been able to connect with donors, really help their philanthropy kind of come to life and help meet some of my dean's priorities too.
How do you like that difference between talking to, in a way, probably talking to many people versus talking to just a few?
So I really enjoy the talking to just a few. I like being able to go deeper in the relationships, and it really starts to feel like a relationship that I can continue to foster and work towards growing to connect the individual deeper to the institution.
Yeah. So in doing that work, I wonder what really stands out for you besides the relationship part. Like what part is the most, I don't know, just personally satisfying and fun?
Yeah. So I kind of look, you might want to take this out. You can tell me if you don't like the answer. So you can cut that. But I like the assets. I like to learn what assets people have and how they can achieve their philanthropy through different assets.
No, that's I mean, I don't think there's anything shameful about that because probably the donors are wondering the same thing, aren't they? Nobody comes to the rule book if you have the desire to give, or you have an innate interest in helping others. You may not know how to do it. Well, maybe that's a question. So when you're sitting down with mid-level donors, do they know what to do? I mean, doesn't the discussion first between your interest in assets and other things, and then your conversations about both the program but also where their journey is taking them, doesn't that help them too? So
with some of my major gift donors, I find it interesting that a lot of them don't know that they can give appreciated stock. So this is something that's like super common, and that's my role is an educational advisor. And I'm not saying they should give that, but just letting them know that it's an option and they can talk with their wealth advisor to see if that's the best option for them.
And we have a kind of a broad audience when we're having these conversations. So some people have been in the field for a long time and some people have just gotten there. When it comes to something like that, do you mind doing like the 30-second pitch on why it's important to think about appreciated stock? Sure. I know it sounds very technical, but it's pretty important.
Yeah. So I'll share with donors, I'll say when people are thinking about gifts of this size, some of them choose to give appreciated stock. Appreciated stock can be advantageous because if you buy a stock low and you sell the stock high, you receive a tax deduction for what you sell the stock for.
Right.
Whenever the stock comes to us, we do not pay taxes. That full amount is able to make an impact in the area that you're interested in.
Yeah, more impact with fewer dollars, which is pretty exciting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And if you're talking about their school, because these are alumni,
right?
For the most part,
Exactly.
Then how is that? I mean, how is it when you're how does it feel to be able to help these donors activate their interest in their alma mater?
I think great. These people are really proud. Where you went to law school is a big deal, and it's something that you talk about inside your firm or your organization. So I think it's not so much gratifying to see that part of them making the gift, but then connecting them to the impact. So the first time they get to meet their first scholarship student, or they get to see the endowed faculty position, they get to meet that faculty member and see that they're able to help retain them and recruit top faculty to the organization.
Sure.
I think that's what's really powerful.
I do want to ask you another thing. It's kind of almost technical in nature.
one of the things that we do is we build these relationships, and we can not provide financial advice, but information like you were doing. But another piece is that they may have pre-existing relationships with classmates that are important to them. They may have pre-existing relationships, especially at major gift level, with faculty who are important to them. Where does that fit as you're developing these conversations and helping them to, again, feel closer to the institution?
I think that fits very well. That's what I try to do. So I try to connect them to the most people that I possibly can. My supervisor says you can tell the maturity of a gift officer by how loosely they hold their prospects.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that because I try to hold them very loosely. The more people they know, the more alumni they know, the more members they know on the board, the faculty, the stronger their ties are to the organization, likely the more they're willing to invest in the organization. So oftentimes I'll say, oh, I just met with this person from the class of 70, and they'll say, oh, I don't know them, but I know so-and-so. And it's like, oh, I saw them a few weeks ago. There's a lot of connection, especially because they're all in the legal field. And so,
yeah. It's working with lawyers is also something where it's a little bit fraught. I mean, there are many people in fundraising who have said, these terrible things that people say, assumptions about people.
Yes.
Either doctors are generous or they're not, or the lawyers are rich or they're not. Do you have to run into some of that attitude maybe in the broader community, and then you're able to dispel it by just working with these people?
I think it's definitely a myth that people think that lawyers aren't philanthropic. That's not what I encounter at all. I think they're some of the most generous people and loyal to their institution, and they want to help and they want to give back. It's been a real privilege to dispel that myth.
Yeah. So this is where you are today, and you were recognized. Why do you think that they made this effort to recognize you, to nominate you, and then celebrate you?
So I learned during the process, and I think this is really interesting. This is what was shared with me, is when they select the award recipients, they're looking for creativity in the field. So it's not necessarily like the most money that you've raised or what institutions you've raised for, but how do you creatively solve problems and the institutions that you're in. So I think that's part of it. I've always focused on stewardship regardless of what role I'm in. And I think that that's a key component to retention and in building those longer relationships.
And where do you imagine this going for you? I'm not talking about a particular job or something. I know you're happy where you are. But what do you imagine as you look forward?
Sure. I imagine just continuing to develop deeper relationships and then pay it forward. We have a lot of young professionals that are entering the field, and it's always nice to have an individual that's a few steps ahead of you that's kind of figured these things out that can help walk you forward. So I'm excited for how the profession is going to continue to evolve intentionally and develop.
I do hear about this with people mentoring others a lot or celebrating others. Although I haven't heard about many people walking with a banner into their office. So that's pretty special. When you're talking with other young professionals like yourself, this is a funny term, by the way. I never really know what it means.
A young professional,
Yes, young professional. I suppose there's a big, broad age range in there. But when we're celebrating people who are emerging in the field, when they're doing this great work that you're doing, they're probably looking for maybe not advice, but some models for how they can also enjoy their role like you're enjoying yours. What would be your counsel maybe to colleagues who are wondering, do I stay or do I go in fundraising in times like these? And do I, is this going to be everything it's cracked up to be? What do you say to other, young professionals who are thinking, is fundraising for me, and how can I make it truly enriching, beneficial experience for me and for the organizations where I work?
Sure. Well, I think you should stay. And if you're not quite happy where you're at, maybe spend some time networking with individuals. If people say, hey, reach out to me, they mean that. You can reach out to them and they'll give you 15 minutes of their time. But scheduling that, my mentor and I met her in 2019 at Icon, and we meet quarterly.
Oh, okay.
And it's been a great relationship. We were just meeting now, and follow through. When people offer to meet with you, follow through with that and show up, give them the time, and then figure out where are people at and what's the best organization that's going to be a good fit for you. And then once you're in that organization, give it everything that you have, but still have balance. You can do your job in 40 hours worth of work a week and do it really well. Show up each day.
I keep thinking about this whole thing with your mission trip because it was so amazing. Because you were really young when you were doing that. Is there anything about that part where you're out in the road that maybe you miss and you imagine yourself doing again in the future?
No.
Once was enough?
Yeah, once was enough.
I'm not saying you have to be a missionary, but no.
You lived out of a suitcase and you slept in a different location almost every night. So it was really a nomadic life. And I think back on it now and I think, how did I possibly do that? But I think it was just a unique time and I had a unique drive. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode of the PM Podcast. You can learn more about the MD Anderson Cancer Center at mdanderson.org and the University of Houston Law Center at law.uh.edu. Information about AFP and its annual awards and honorees is available at afpglobal.org. Our thanks to our sponsor, DonorSearch, the world leader in AI-powered fundraising intelligence solutions for the nonprofit world. Our producer is Jack Frost, and our theme music is Moving Out, Moving In by Jay Taylor, and is provided courtesy of Epidemic Sound. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe wherever you like to listen. Check out our sister shows, Frontlines of Social Good and How to Raise, and come back next weekend for another conversation with a leader in the world of social good. Until then, this is Jay Frost. Thanks for joining me.